So I am reading the question. This is an old question from UPSC exams. If at all you have the paper, you can, the old question papers book, chapter 5, paper 1, you can look at it. I am reading for you. Witchcraft accusation is the result of strained interpersonal relations. That was a big question actually. Did you find it? Chapter 5, paper 1. Which year? 2005. 2005, how many marks? 60. 60 marks. Witchcraft accusation is the result of strained interpersonal relations. Not a 10% of the students touched the question. If at all we have to touch the question, we have to understand what it is. If at all the question is asked now, it will be much easier for you because with the same title, several articles were published. Especially there was one in 2015. After one particular thinker had studied the Slovakian society, etc., he had submitted a paper. His inquiry was, what is the role of witchcraft and how interpersonal relations are getting affected? Maybe I'll try spending about 10 minutes on this particular question. You can keep scribbling as we keep giving you the names of the thinkers and the structure of the question answer. I repeat the question. Witchcraft accusations reflect the strained interpersonal relations. Witchcraft accusations reflect the strained interpersonal relations. That is more or less your scheme. What is witchcraft and what are the approaches used in anthropology to understand witchcraft? What are the case studies? We'll give some 3-4 numbers there. And then what is the significance of witchcraft in the contemporary times? Among all the different thinkers who have written on religion and magic, this was a very prominent fellow, Pritchard. And we have used this name with the tribe called Azande. At several places we got this name, boy wives. He had studied Azande. He was also known for his studies on totems. Totemism was one of his important contributions. What he said was, in fact, the kind of statement that is used in the exam was more or less the one given by Pritchard himself. I'll read out some sentences. See, it's something like this. For Pritchard, witchcraft is one of the ways in which individuals and supernatural are actually linked. It's a different kind of a link. See, when it comes to religion, we speak of a direct link between the supernatural and the individual. Here the link is a different one. You are using the supernatural to explain a situation between the humans, and especially when the things go wrong. When there are disasters or accidents happening, something negative, something damaging is happening, when one individual is blaming the other. That's where the word that is used there, witchcraft accusations, reflect the strained interpersonal relations. So generally religion is a link between the supernatural and the humans. It is a constructive relation we speak of. Witchcraft or any other kind of magic, as most of us know, it has a negative tone in it. And especially when we speak of witchcraft accusation, we'll see how things were moving historically. But then this actually is an occasion where one individual or a group is blaming the other for whatever disaster has happened, taking the name of the supernatural or evil forces for that matter. Are you following what I'm saying? You must have read about witchcrafters, witches, etc. Witch possession. Sometimes, the kind of examples that are presented ever since you got married to her. Because there is a witch in her, you are possessed by a witch. She came along with a witch. And now I think it's very clear. Now let us go ahead with something here. I am reading out a very interesting statement for you. This was given by a man called Ronald Hutton. He was defining witchcraft. I really liked this definition. So, Hutton, Ronald Hutton, R-O-N-A-L-D. I don't know how to do this. Yeah. Hutton defines that witches are characteristic of the entire world. Witches are a characteristic of the entire world. Listen to this, I don't read again, because it's a long definition. A witch is somebody who is apparently supernatural means to cause a misfortune. I'm reading that line again. A witch is somebody who uses apparently supernatural means to cause a misfortune or injury to others. And this person, meaning the one who is possessed by witch, this person does not harm the neighbors or kin. I'm so sorry, I stand corrected there. This person does harm to neighbors or kin rather than strangers, and represents a threat to the community, and operates not for straightforward material gain, but from envy and malice, and thus is either inherently evil or in the grip of inherent evil. Did you understand what it is? Yeah, here, Ronald Hutton. A witch is somebody who uses apparently supernatural means to cause misfortune, injury to others. This person does harm to neighbors or kin rather than to the strangers. The one who is close to you can harm you, not the fellows who are away from you, who are far from you. And represents a threat to the community, operates not for straightforward material gain, but from envy and malice, and thus either inherently evil or in the grip of inherent evil. We will see various occasions where envy and these things operate. Revenge. Many souls keep on roaming around us when their wishes are not fulfilled. You die without your wish being fulfilled. The soul or spirit, whatever, that takes the form of a witch, and it would try to look for a vehicle so that it can harm you. And by entering a particular other body, it tries to take a revenge. But then the interesting things here are, most of the time you will not be in a position to prove it. There are series of episodes that were considered by anthropologists in this study. The interesting studies conducted in Mexico and very recent 2015 in Slovenia and Netherlands, etc., and France also, where people were killed on the accusation of witchcraft. Even in Telangana, we hear it many times, blaming it on the way they are operating spirit possession, or in a way witches actually, chillangi andamu. Somebody is trying to damage you through black magic, and people as a community would try to punish them, and good number of killings are reported. When the cases come to the police, what comes up is the accusation. They are accused of witchcraft, and hence the villagers, the community had killed them. The problem for the police is they cannot prove, you cannot disprove. That's what we say current status. Where such kind of conditions are existing, the laws have to be made in such a way that the cultural accommodation or cultural recognition has to be given to such kind of episodes. And how to deal with such kind of episodes has to be definitely dealt with by the legal mechanism. This is the problem. Now, there are very few interesting things that I would want to quickly talk about. It's something like this. I am elaborating on that particular sentence where he says that the person does harm to the neighbors or kin rather than the strangers. See, with strangers you won't have any problem. If a stranger's son gets into IAS, you don't have a problem. If your brother's son gets into IAS, there is a problem. Envy comes in the close kin groups, not with the far off fellows. So right from the day the result was announced, your uncle was constantly having an eye on you. And maybe he was doing whatever necessary from the witchcraft front. And some damage happened and you got into a case from which you are not able to get out, suspended, etc., etc. And now the issue is you were not responsible for everything that was going wrong in the office, but it is the witchcraft that is responsible. You can't prove, but then you believe in it. How many things are there? We believe, but still we cannot prove. This is also one of that kind. And there are lists. See, there is this thinker by name Briggs. We have come across this name in Indian anthropology also. He worked in India as well. British administrator, anthropologist who wrote some of the interesting, including the Chamar ethnograph. What he says is, because you are not in a position to disprove, you are not in a position to do anything more about it. Across the world, Briggs was trying to give this evolution. In what kind of societies witchcrafts exist and where they do not exist. Once again, this is going to the same line of thinking, evolution of economic subsistence methods. Where there is a possibility of possession, private property, or profit-orientedness, there is going to be inequality, there is a problem of envy or interpersonal disturbances there. So, keeping the same thing in mind, Briggs says that in the hunting-gathering societies, there is less possibility of witchcraft because there is not much of a stratification there. There's less possibility of envy and other things. But as one goes into settled living, so for him, agrarian societies are the first societies where we can find witchcrafts. See, if it is a nomadic group, if there is some problem with my neighbor, I would simply leave the place. Hunter-gatherers, they leave the place if there is a problem with the neighbor. Neighbor may be your own kinsman, neighbor may be a non-kin individual. But if there is a problem, because you are nomadic, you would leave the place. But in the case of settled groups, that does not happen. You will have to live there. Many times we see in our apartments, in our locality, there would be some people whom we cannot handle at all. I must have told you about one of my neighbors some time back. When there is a heavy downpour, he would be watering his lawn. You can't do anything about them. So the other day in the meeting, this was a big question, what to do with him? We can't do. మూర్ఖుడు ఎవరు మార్చలేరు. మూర్ఖుడు అంటారు. మూర్ఖుడు ఇంగ్లీష్లో ఏమంటారమ్మా? మూర్ఖుడు అంటే ఫూల్. And hence, see, when you are staying in a locality which is inescapable for you, you cannot move away. And that fellow is causing problem constantly. So you try to do something from the other front. You cannot directly, on the face, you cannot fight him. And hence you are trying to do things to damage him. And this damage, whatever you are doing, cannot be proved because you are invoking the supernatural, the evil forces in a negative way and trying to get the things done. He cannot prove it for you. So, in the settled populations, this is a commonality. Now, one other thing Briggs looks at is it that as we are going into industrial societies, people are questioning witchcraft and giving up the faith in it, giving up believing in it and practicing it? He says it is not happening. The way things are getting unfolded at in different places of the world, maybe in Australia, maybe in certain parts of India, South Asia, and several other parts in Europe also, otherwise called the most modern societies, they still have the practices of witchcraft. People say witchcraft is operated on them. And Briggs also tries to list what are the reasons for witchcraft being operated. It could be, as I was saying, somebody's success, a relative success, the economic success, or maybe some kind of a disturbance that you had. Your land holdings being occupied. It may be only 1 feet of land, but then your land holding occupied. అదేదో సినిమాలో నాయనా అంటాడు చూడు, ఏంటిది? ముద్దస్తున్నానన్న అసలు. It is illegitimate occupation of the lands, or it's something like this, a fight for the mate. This you can see on many occasions actually, a fight for the mate. I have chosen somebody, but then somebody else has chosen that fellow. He or she takes away that fellow. I am only be an audience there. Then I would want to settle scores. I would do everything possible. So there could be n number of cases of this kind, but the spirit here is the spirit of envy. It is not to gain the material aspects. Money doesn't matter. I would want to take a revenge. And I would want to damage the people who are progressing. You'll have to be extra cautious with your kinsmen, with your closest friends. An enemy cannot do anything for you. Enemy cannot do anything against you. But your friends, your closest kinsmen will damage you. So be cautious. That's where he says witchcraft accusation is the reflection of interpersonal relations. That's where it stops the statement. But you will have to say there that it is the neighbors and kinsmen who are actually the targets. The far off people, non-kinsmen, are not the targets. I think it is in such kind of communities, internal warfare becomes very much important. I think at one point of time we were discussing in what circumstances internal warfare will be there. Pritchard brings out this one. In Azande, where there is an internal warfare, one of the reasons is that they believe in witchcraft. But the problem arises in the modern societies where there is a combination actually. Where there is a combination. You cannot brush aside a belief in witchcraft saying that it's the remnant of the past, it's a survival of the past. Because that is leading to several killings. When that is happening, it's a reality and it is not simply a survival of the past. This is a dysfunctional element that is existing. So your answer must end with saying that there are situations even in the modern times. They cannot be left away as academic areas of academic interest. There has to be a practical orientedness towards how these the so-called witchcraft accusations have to be dealt with in the modern law. That should be your answer. Am I clear to you, sir? In the conclusion, I said that in the most modern societies, you cannot keep aside the concept of witchcraft, saying that it is something of academic interest. Because there are real-time issues emerging, such as killings and damaging, harming, injuring the other individuals, when these are the real episodes that are happening, it doesn't simply end at calling it an accusation and getting away from it. There has to be a proper understanding, and there should be a legal mechanism to deal with the things that you cannot prove. Because you see, most of the modern criminal laws, they are based on the evidence. When you can't bring an evidence, how do you deal with the crime? That's where I end that topic.